Welcome to the Accessibility Guide channel. Today we're going to take a look at fixing a PDF sample document that is a little more complex than a regular file. The document that you're going to see today has been printed from the web. I want to make sure and note that when I began working on this file, I didn't realize how many problems there were going to be. I went ahead and kept recording so that you can see an actual workflow of the next steps I was going to take. But before you really spend time on this video, just know that the source file that I created was not able to be made accessible. The particular problem that kept getting flagged was an issue called character encoding. This specific issue must often be fixed at the source. And I could have spent some more time on figuring out a more accessible way to create a PDF from a web page. But in this example video, I simply did a Control-P, got my PDF, and I tried to fix it some of the methods that I normally use. However, they didn't work. Finally, I had to take the file into a third-party program called Abbyy FineReader 16 in order to get a flattened OCR'd PDF that I could then start to make accessible. With all of that said, please enjoy the actual demo. The first thing I like to do is run the accessibility checker. To do that, I'm going to select the accessibility button and then accessibility check, and let's just take a preliminary scan at some of the problems in this file. If I expand these accessibility check options, I can determine that there's a bunch of content that isn't tagged, the tab order is incorrect, there's alternate text missing for images, and we have several issues with different headings throughout the content. Let's select the tags button and do a quick walkthrough. It looks like we do have some content that came through, but really it's buried inside of div tags and structure tags. So this is going to be a little challenging to work with. I think what I'm going to do instead is run this file through the Make Accessible Action Wizard in order to get a better baseline starting file. So to do that, I'm going to select the Action Wizard and then select Make Accessible and then Start. And right off the bat, I have some content I can fill in for our metadata. The title of this document will be a Fiverr gig breakdown, and the subject is Advanced PDF Remediation, and the author is Sean Jordison. The keywords can be Fiverr, Sean, etc. and select OK. The second step will be to recognize text throughout the file. I'm going to leave the default settings, which is English, searchable image, and 600 DPI, and select OK. Adobe Acrobat will then perform OCR on all of the pages. The next step is to determine whether or not there are any form fields in this file, and in this example there are not, so I'm going to skip this step. Then we're going to set the reading language to English, and then the last step, I'm getting an error saying the touch-up cannot add the annotation tag. Basically, Adobe Acrobat needs to add a root tag before it can perform this step. So to do that, I'm simply going to select OK. And it may do it for each one of the pages. So I'm just going to keep selecting OK. And then the next step in the Action Wizard is to find any images that need alt text. So it currently found 18 images. Now, typically I may actually apply the alt text, but for right now, because I don't trust the Action Wizard completely, I'm just going to select Save and Close, and I'm going to fix this in a later step. And then the final piece of the Action Wizard is the accessibility checker. We can go ahead and launch that, and it looks like we have some issues throughout the file. The biggest one that I see is character encoding. Now this typically occurs when files are created like the way that I did. It's possible I'm going to have to start over from scratch because character encoding is one of the most complicated things to fix in a PDF. So let's take a look at the tags panel and let's see what we can find out. At this point in the process, I should have stopped what I was doing and figured out a different way to export the PDF to then make it accessible. So the first thing it starts with is a link. We have a figure tag, and it looks like it applied some structure to our file, but we have quite a bit of work to do here. The first thing I'm going to do is add a document tag to the root of this tag structure, and then I'm going to move all of the tags inside of that. And I think what I'm going to do is actually use the reading order tool to make adjustments to this file because the tag structure is so bad that it's going to make more sense to just tag it from scratch. All right, so let's launch the accessibility button, and then the reading order tool. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more tips and best practices on how to get files to a more accessible state. And let's go ahead and jump in here. The first thing I'm going to do is select all of the header content and mark it as background artifact. I'm going to select this other object with my image and select background artifact. And then I have some text on the page that I'm going to attempt to mark as a heading level 1. Okay, and that is coming through. I can then move my heading level 1 to the top of the tag structure. And let's keep using the reading order tool here. A lot of this content we're simply going to mark as a background artifact because it came from a web page. Let's see if we can tag this as some text. All right. Now, a lot of this is going to be tagged as background artifact, or that's what I'm attempting. But sometimes working in PDF can be a little challenging. We have paid consultations. Let's mark this as a heading level 2. We have this text on the bottom. We will mark it as paragraph text. And then this other content on the bottom, we will simply artifact it. And then active gigs, we will mark as a heading level 2. And then let's mark that content as a figure and some of this text as text, and the starting at $80 can mark as text also. All right, let's do a couple more on this page 1, and I'm going to select all of that content that's in an image and mark it as a figure. Take this text and apply a text paragraph. We'll take the price point starting at $10, mark it as text, and then let's do one more, accessible PDF, we will mark it as a figure. All right, next I'm going to add in a couple of section tags to make sure that I don't get lost in working on this page. And I'm going to put in the words page 1. All right, back to the section tags. I'm going to place everything that I find for page 1 into a single section tag, just so I can have a little better track of it. And this isn't required, it's just something I like to help organize some of the content. For example, I can change this to say page 1, and now I know everything on this page is in fact. So let's continue trying to make this accessible. I have my H1 tag laid out. We then have a figure tag, a whole bunch of other text. So this is certainly a very challenging file. Let's see if we can make this text active gigs as a heading level 2. I'm using the reading order tool, and let's mark this as heading level 2 and see if that worked. I can select the text, use the tags panel, and select find tag from selection, was not found. So let's try this another method. I'm going to create a blank H2 tag. I'm going to select it, and then let's highlight the text active gigs. And from the options panel, I'm going to select create tag from selection. And that seemed to have forced the heading level 2. And then I can actually change the figure tag to an artifact. So we've got our H1, our H2, this random link that we can also delete out. All right, so now I'm looking for this content because that should be the next content in my tags panel. So let's highlight it and select find tag from selection. All right, and we have that there. So that means I can move my H2 tag down a little bit, and I want to move it after paid consultations. So we have our H1 tag, and then we have this other text here. Now, currently it's all in one tag. So if we wanted to, we could spend a little more time tagging this appropriately. So we might do something like from, we can make it a heading level 3. And this is just to break it up. Member since, let's see if we can grab this text. Heading level 3, average response time, heading level 3, and last deliver, heading level 4. All right, and let's see how that came across in the tags panel. So we've got our H1, random paragraph text, our H3, text, H3, text, H3, text, H3, text. That's great. This random P tag, I'm going to right click it and select change tag to artifact. And I realize that I can actually make these all H2 tags. So let's do that instead. I'm going to select each one of those H3s I just created, right click, select properties, and change this to H2 and select OK. Now let's keep going. The reading order is still out of whack, so we need to get to this next part. H2, figure, and text. I'm going to Control X in the tags panel and move it back up underneath this other text that I made. So we've got H2, figure tag. Now, because of the way that this came through, I'm artifacting a lot of this extra content, but that's okay for now. All right, let's see if there's some other phantom content on page 1 that I need to move back up. So this figure tag is an image and it is also linked. So let's see if we can fix this. I'm going to move back up into my tags panel and paste it underneath. And let's right click the figure tag, select properties, and this will say preview Fiverr profile and select close. And we may need to do something to the link also, but let's hold off on that for now. I first am just trying to get the tags in order a little bit better. All right, now that we're at the bottom of this page, let's find our active gigs header, Control X, and I'm going to move it in the tags panel. We then have this figure tag, and since this content is important, I'm going to change it to an H3, and it's called I will 508 your course or documents. We have another figure tag, and it looks like our text got all messed up. So my text is actually nested in another tag. I'm going to Control Exit and move back up and apply a heading level 3. So we have these figure tags in here. Let's go ahead and add alt text. I'm going to right click the tag, select properties, and we'll just say 508 content remediation expert graphic. Select close. Then we've got this other one, WCAG 2.1 compliance expert, and select close. We've got our heading level 3, and we have another image. Let's go ahead and add alt text for this one. Now, what's interesting about this file is because I did the print to PDF thing from a web page, it's got a lot of extra junk in it. So let's see if we can break this out. In this figure tag, it should be underneath this H2 because it has all this extra junk in it. So I actually have 2 figure tags that need to be figured out here. We then have multiple link object reference tags, and then my other content that was a part of that image. I'm going to open up the reading order tool and attempt to tag this entire thing as a figure. And let's see if that helps do it. Not really. Okay. If I select the text and then I do the find feature, find tag from selection, it pulls the tags out for me so I can see them in the tags panel. I was having trouble finding where the text was even at. So what I'm going to do is select this p tag, link, and Control X, and let's get it underneath this H3 tag. All right, I'm then going to select these path objects in the figure tag and change them to an artifact because they're just in my way. And now we have the H2 figure, our H3, then we have our link text that we need to figure out here. For now, let's just move the $80 underneath this other tag, and I'm going to delete links out for now. These are obviously linking to the gig itself, but it's throwing me a lot of problems at the moment. So again, I'm going to delete those out for the set availability. For this example, I'm just going to artifact it. And then we have this other link content. Again, I'm going to delete that for now. Let's move our starting at $10 out and delete the links. All right, so let's go back to the top. We're on page 1. We have a heading 1, figure tag. We have a variety of text on the page, an H2 tag, another H2 tag, and then we have the gig descriptions on page 1. And then we have this footer content. Let's artifact the footer content, see if it'll let me. It won't, so I'm just gonna delete the p tag for now. All right, and all I'm trying to do is get this page 1 in order, as there are a lot of problems within it. All right, let's save it, and then let's go ahead and run the accessibility checker on this file. And you know what? For sake of this video, I think I'm gonna delete these other pages out because they're really throwing me a lot of errors. So typically I would not advise creating a PDF from a web page. However, that's what I did, and now I've got to deal with it. So let's delete out all of these extra pages and focus in on the one page. All right, so now I just have page 1 in here, and now we have like a workable document that's a little more complex. So let's go ahead and run the accessibility checker now and find out where we're at. All right, looks like we have character encoding problems, which I'm not surprised to see as this was printed from the web. This is going to be very challenging to fix, but we'll see. And then we have some tagged annotations failed. So we're getting there. Let's see if we can fix some of these character encoding problems. It looks like we have an issue right here on this FI. I'm going to try a couple of things and see if they work. The first thing I'm going to do is select Edit PDF. And what I notice here is that our text is a little jumbled. So because of the way this file was created, I actually can't fix this. I am going to need a new source file in order to fix the character encoding as it stands now. Typically what you can do is you can come in here and edit some of the text. The problem is I don't know what letters are in here. So something we may do instead is, let's just try this. I'm going to delete all of that text out and select add text and select preview Fiverr profile. Now, typically when you have live text on a page, this would be something pretty easy to change. I would simply come in and change the font. But because of the complexity of this file, as it stands right now, I'm actually going to need a new exported file. So for sake of just testing this, we've got 35 issues on character encoding. Let's run the check again and see if we still got the same problem. So we were able to eliminate one error. However, we created a whole bunch of other ones, tagged annotations and tagged content. So to keep fixing this, what I could do is, because this is currently a figure tag, let's go ahead and right click new tag, create a paragraph tag. And then if I select the text and go to the options menu in the tags panel, I can create tag from selection, and this will create that tag. Again, as it stands right now, I am not going to be able to fix the character encoding problems within this PDF. Let's go back to the accessibility checker and have it check again. And then we again have our character encoding. Tagged annotations failed. Let's see if we can figure this out. I'm gonna right click the error and select show in content panel. And I have all of these links in here. Let's go ahead and see what I'm gonna try to select it and let's tag it, the text. All right, well now, all right, new plan. We're gonna try to find this annotation using the find feature in the tags panel. So the first thing I'm gonna do is create a blank tag by right clicking in the tags panel, selecting new tag, and let's just put in a p tag. I'm then going to select the p tag, and from the options menu, let's select find, and let's look for unmarked annotations, and we're going to search the page. I select find, and then we can tag element, and it looks like it found that link. So now let's go ahead and run the accessibility checker again, and we are now passing everything except for our character encoding. Let's take this one step further and see what kind of results we get in the pack checker. So I just launched the PDF Accessibility Checker 2021, and I'm dropping my file in, and we have a slew of problems for PDF UA and WCAG. Let's take a look at some of the errors inside of this file. As I begin expanding some of the problems under PDF UA, I again have the same issues with character encoding. At this point in the remediation process, it doesn't really make sense for me to keep going because this file is not going to pass no matter what I do. I need a new source file, or I need to put this PDF into a third-party program like Abbyy FineReader. And the purposes of this is because the way that the printer took the web page and put it into PDF, it is just not usable, and it's creating a lot of problems throughout the entire file. So I would not spend any more time on this one-page file with all of these problems throughout. Let's take a look at some of the WCAG, and it looks like, yeah, we have link annotation errors because some of the content came through as links. It's really troublesome. So again, at this point, I need a new source file to get past some of that character encoding problem. So I suppose what I could do is launch Abbyy FineReader 16, and we can take a look at that. So let's do it. I'm going to launch a third-party program called Abbyy FineReader. Now, I realize many of you probably will not have this particular program, but in the wild, sometimes files like this come through that we need to do something else. So I'm going to launch Abbyy FineReader, select OCR editor, and then I'm going to choose this file that I've been working on. And what's going to happen is it's going to perform OCR on the file. This is a step that is done inside of Abbyy and not inside of Acrobat. And right away, we can begin removing some of the zones in here. I want to adjust these text zones so that only the text is coming through, and delete the header and footer content. We have text, image, text, text, image. And for the most part, things look like they're coming through okay. I think this example underneath my name should be an image. So let's go ahead and recognize the page again. And as I look at some of the text, it looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and change our save file as save as searchable PDF document. And then let's try out a new copy of this file. Now, visually, it looks very similar, but let's run the accessibility checker, and you're going to be amazed at what you see. There are no errors. Now, this does not mean that it is compliant. We would still want to test it using other elements, but the biggest component here is that it fixed a lot of the character encoding issues. There's still some links in here that we're gonna need to adjust, but all of the text is coming through just perfectly. Now again, the reading order is a little off, but the images are coming through perfectly. And now we have a file that we can actually begin to make accessible. So there are some cases that you need to run it through a third-party program. I hope this video was beneficial for you because we ran into quite a few problems. Now in a perfect world, if this file came across my desk, I would simply reach out to them and let them know that I needed another copy. In fact, in some of my earlier days of my career, I would literally print that PDF and scan it into my computer because it would create less problems for me to work with. So to summarize what we did today, I printed a web page to a PDF file and attempted to fix it, and I totally failed. I then needed to take that same PDF and run it through a third-party OCR program in order to get a document that was a little bit more manageable. I appreciate all of you joining me on that journey for accessibility. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you made it all the way to the end, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.